Harihi Om Gananam Tva Ganapati Gum Havamahe Kavyam Kavinamugamastavastamam Jyeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspatha Anashranvanno Debeseda Sadhanam Prano Devi Saraswati Vaje Vajinivati Dhinama Mitrayabato Ganeshaya Namaha Saraswatyai Namaha Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Jnananandamayam Devam Nirmalarspatikatrudhim Adharam Sarvavidyanam Ayagrivam Upasmahe Yasyatvarada Vakradhyaya Parishatya Parashatham Vignam Nignam Ti Satatam Vishvashemam Tamashraye Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Sarvalokanam Visaje Bhavaroginaha Nidaye Sarva Vidyanam Sri Dakshinamurthaye Namaha Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Saishwararpanamastu Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetaikapanaye Jnana Mudraya Krishnaya Geetamrutaduhe Namaha Sarvopanishad Gavo Dokta Gopalanandanaha Partho Vatsau Sudhir Bhokta Dokta Geetamritat Mahat Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagatgurum Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Krishna Pranamastu Suswagatam Namo Namaha. Welcome to another session where we are looking into the practical application of what the Gita is meant to convey to us in today's day and today's time, right? So we'll look at what Krishna said to Arjuna in the battlefield and how what he said at that time is equally, relevant to our lives today. So we were in the battlefield for chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we continue to be in the battlefield. And even when these sessions are finished after 10 weeks, your day-to-day life will be battling with your day-to-day challenges. So the good will always be battling with the evil, right? So that is not going to go. But all these things that is coming to us through the Gita Saram, the essence of the Gita, will help you in your own respective journeys to see how you can cull and control, curb and curtail all these, negative thoughts, negative words, negative actions, right? So you see how Arjuna has changed from a completely, negative person who did not want to participate, even though, he knew it was, dharmic to fight. He didn't want to do it. He just wanted to renounce everything and go away, right? So he thought that was easier. Just to bring him back to the path of normality, to the path of, dharma, Krishna spoke about the Yuddha Dharma and the Manusha Dharma, right? To make him realize that sometimes, even though you don't like to do something, you have to do it. You need to do it because that is what is required of you at that moment, at that time. So it's not a question of you thinking, oh, what I'm doing is wrong. It's the question of doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason to the right people. That's it. So the whole Gita can be summed up in that. So we looked at chapters 4 and 5. Sorry, 3 and 4 last week. Today we're going on to 5 and 6, right? So let me remind you of the battlefield, right? Of the stage that is the battlefield. So just to give you a quick recap of what those things mean when you see the picture of the battlefield of Kurukshetra, right? So the chariot is there, 5 horses representing 5 senses. The reins from the horses are held by Krishna in one hand. That denotes or signifies discrimination. Krishna himself holding the reins of the senses represents buddhi or intellect. The buddhi is talking to the mind, who is Arjuna, who is in a state of confusion, in a state of dilemma, right? In a state of delusion, in a state of disillusion, in a state of despondency, right? That's what, unless the mind surrenders to the intellect, wisdom will not start working. Then, of course, the chariot itself is your body, deha, devo, laya, right? The body is the temple of God. The 4 wheels, I said to you, were the 4 Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharvana Veda. The 4 wheels also represent the 4 Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. The 4 wheels also represent the 4 ashramas, Brahmachari, Grahastha, Vanapratishtha, and Sannyasa, right? The 4 yugas, the 4 yogas, the 4 yajnas, just the wheels. Then, of course, it's an erect chariot. There's a flag post flying. On the flag post, there's Hanuman. That shows faith in diversity, right? Hanuman is complete bhakti. So your devotion should not be reduced simply because you live in challenging times. Then, of course, there's a clear path. That clear path denotes pausation in thought, pausation in action, pausation in words. That clear path. Because if you don't see that clear path and if you don't pause for that moment, you will be subsumed by the Kaurava forces on the right and you will be completely detached from the Pandava forces on your left. There's always a solution to every problem, and that is the horizon, the clear white blue skies. So against that backdrop, let me now take you to chapter 5. Chapter 5 is called Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Karma Sannyasa Yoga. We've got about 29 verses. This is where, you see, all this time, Krishna has been explaining to Arjuna, right? From chapter 1 right up to chapter 4, we looked at Jnana Yoga, then we looked at, Karma Yoga, and he's giving the explanation between Jnana and Karma. Now, Arjuna asks Krishna in this chapter 5 begins with him asking, I don't want all these options, Krishna. Tell me, which is the best way? Either I go through the path of Karma Yoga or I become a sannyasa. So Krishna is explaining further what he meant. He says you have to do your duty, but you cannot do your duty by detaching yourself. You have to do your duty, but without any attachment to it. And that is the best way to attain moksha. So it's better to be a Karma Yogi, right? So in chapter 5, he's talking about the 2 lifestyles, right? Sankhya and yoga, karma and jnana, right? Then he's talking about karma yoga and its fruits, its benefits, right? Karma yoga phalan, it's called phalam, phal, Then he's talking about jnana, karma, sannyasa, jnana, karma, and sannyasa, the difference between the 3. Then he's talking about the value of detachment, right? Vairagya. Then he's talking about videha mukti. Deha means body. Mukti means, reaching the ultimate, merging with that one. V means above the body experience. So videha mukti means when you go above your bodily level, from conscious to subconscious, subconscious to superconscious, then you will experience that Brahman. Now, if you want to know how to do meditation, right? This is from the man himself, right? Krishna himself, right? And Swami has repeated this on many occasions. Krishna has said specifically instructions on how to do meditation, right? And that comes in chapter 6. But you see, before he goes to chapter 6, he gives a preview because you need to know what is coming, isn't it? So he tells Arjuna instruction on meditation, just on 2 verses, right? or 2 or 3 verses, 27, 28, 29, I think it is, right? This is from Krishna himself. Right? So there is no higher authority. And you don't need anyone else to tell you any different. This is the man telling Arjuna, this is what meditation is all about. This is how you do it. And then Arjuna asks him, when I do chapter 6, I'll tell you, Arjuna asks him some questions. How to do, what happens if you get disturbance, what happens if a person fails in meditation. All these questions have been answered. You think you have these questions now in 2020 or 2019 or 2018 or 2010 or 2000? No. Arjuna already asked all these questions. Okay, so that's why I'm saying every answer, to all of life's problems is available in the Gita. You see, seek and you shall find. Right? So, because we don't see, and when we see, we don't get what it means actually, the real significance of what he's trying to say, we lose, we miss the boat. So, because it's dealing with sannyasa or the comparator between staying in the world and serving or renouncing and becoming a sannyasi, this is called sannyasa yoga. This chapter is called sannyasa yoga. So, in the last chapter, Krishna was talking about knowledge, jnana, and renunciation, sannyasa. So, jnana sannyasa yoga. Remember, he referred to the wise man. You remember I spoke to you about the wise man whose karmas are burnt by the fire of knowledge. You remember, right? Then he glorified the wise man as one who is free from what? Free from possessions, free from any activity that only relates to the body. And this is important, right? One who is happy with everything that he is experiencing in life. So we shouldn't say, oh, my prarabdha karma is so bad that I am in this position, so I cannot be enjoying everything that I'm seeing, or everything that I'm getting, or everything that I'm hearing, everything that I'm receiving. No, you have to live a life of gratitude. The moment you start giving gratitude to the universe every day, I think I mentioned this when I did Bhaja Govindam, I mentioned this when I did karma with you, now I'm mentioning again when I'm doing Gita with you. First thing you get up in the morning, say thank you to the universe for giving you yet another opportunity to improve yourself a little bit. How? To serve his creation, to love his creation, to do for his creation. And you'll be fine. Right? These are the signs of the beginnings of monkhood, sainthood. You want to become a rishi, you want to become, a sage, this is it. This is the way, right? At the same time, once he's told Arjuna all this, he says, Arjuna, you have to take action now. You see, this is the beauty of Krishna, right? At every single time, he does not tell you what to do. I mean, I'm talking about, the characters in the Mahabharata, right? Whether it is Arjuna, whether it is Bhima, whether it is Yudhishthira, Nakula or Sahadeva, he never says, do this. Even to Dhritarashtra, to Vidura, to Bhishma, to Dronacharya, all the people, or Duryodhana and his brothers, right? He will always say, this is all the cards on the table. Now you choose what you want to do. Because at the end of the day, we only experience the results that directly relates to the choice that we have made. The choice that we have made consciously or unconsciously, right? We cannot blame someone else for the choice. Okay, consciously means I understand and I made the choice. But unconsciously means how? Well, unconsciously means you did not make it with the knowledge, right? So what you should have done is, you should have got the knowledge first and then made that. This is why we call making an informed decision, informed choice, right? Whose fault is that? You have to ask, you have to ask, you have to find. You have to ask, you have to find. That is the way to progress, right? So now Arjuna is now confused. He said, one moment you're telling me jnana yoga, path of knowledge. Next moment you're telling karma yoga, path of action. Then you're talking to me about sannyasa yoga, a path of renunciation. Now, Krishna, I'm really confused because I'm not sure whether to sacrifice my ashrama sannyasa, sankhya in other words, or whether I have to go in the path of karma sannyasa. Ashrama sannyasa, karma sannyasa. One is a samsari, a grihastha, and one is a sannyasa, right? The two different households. Like 4 households, right? Brahmachari, grihastha, Vanapratishtha and sannyasa. So now he's confused. I don't know which one to go for. So he's asking Krishna, you tell me now which one, you want me to renounce, or you want me to stay here and fight karma yoga, or you want me to go to the path of jnana? Then Krishna tells him, when you renounce the identification of yourself with this body that you have, renunciation of body identification is true sannyasa. It doesn't mean you're detaching yourself by going to live in the forest or up in a cave. This is called jnana karma sannyasa, Arjuna. So detach yourself from this identification that you are the body. You are not the body, right? This sannyasa, once you know the jnana karma sannyasa, this sannyasa can coexist with your active life, because it's mental renunciation. Mentally, you've renounced this body, right? So you're detaching yourself from the body. But ashrama sannyasa cannot coexist with active life because it's physical renunciation. So Krishna is actually advising Arjuna to remain in the society and do what he has to do, at the same time exercise non-attachment to the body. Very simple. But Arjuna says, but you talk about sannyasa. See, Arjuna is only focusing. This is many times like what we do, when somebody is talking, we have our own mindset and we think what he said, that word only means one thing. Arjuna was like that. He says, you said sannyasa. Sannyasa means going away. So how can I stay here and go away at the same time? Right? So Arjuna was under a mistaken belief, right? So he is asking Krishna, and the whole chapter, the chapter 5, actually begins with Arjuna posing the question to Krishna, saying, how can a person remain in duty, at the same time be free from his actions by becoming a renunciant? No, I don't understand. Then Krishna says, look, I told you about two lifestyles, right? One where you're only involved in the action and you're getting the fruits and you're experiencing the fruits. The other is where you use knowledge or jnana. You're living in this life, but you're dedicating all your acts and all the fruits of the actions to me, thereby discharging yourself from the experience of the prarabdha that you will come to face in the next life. Fantastic. Then Arjuna says, okay, I know you've said this and that, you've given me two choices, but now, I am not sure whether to, be in a state of inclusion or be in a state of seclusion. So I want to be very clear. What is it that you want me to do? And Krishna says, it's not what I want you to do. It's what you want to do based on what I am telling you. Based on what I'm telling you. So Arjuna says, so what is the main difference between a karma yogi and a sannyasi? Well, a karma yogi dedicates all his physical and mental actions to the Lord without any concern for the result. Arjuna, do you understand that? Okay. Now, a yogi will do his tapasya and will expect fruits of that tapasya. Of course, that is a higher level of tapasya, but he's still an expectant. He's still expecting results. Gradually, he will develop self-control and ultimately he will discover his self-realization. That's a different thing, right? But whether you want to go in the path of karma, or whether you want to go in the path of jnana, or whether you want to become a sannyasa, I told you already, you need a guru. This can only be accomplished through the tutelage of a guru, and a guru alone. And that's why I remember I spoke to you about jnana, karma, sannyasa. Three paths. Three paths also you need a guru, right? Then Krishna talks about how you can become wise before you choose. It's very simple. Two things you have to avoid. One is ignorance, two is delusion. This is where you are now. You are in a state of ignorance, and as a result of that, you've got delusion. You're deluded. Hence, you are in a state of despondency, right? Because the moment self-ignorance comes, the direct result is it will reduce any self-knowledge that you have. Any Brahmanic knowledge that you have, it will go because of the self-ignorance. So what must I do, Krishna? Well, three things. Shravanam. I'm talking, you're listening, right? After you listen, what you must do? Mananam. You must absorb. After you absorb, what must you do? Nidhyadasana. Nidhyasana. That means absorb and practice. Only this will allow you to become wiser and wiser and wiser and revel in the Brahman ultimately. Because only when you are freed from all these impurities of thoughts, impurities of words, and impurities of actions, can you attain Videha Mukti. Remember, I said to you, what is Videha Mukti, right? Once you touch that Videha Mukti point, there is no return. But then I'm living in this world, so what about all the results? Yeah, Prarabdha will bring you sometimes favorable result. Prarabdha will sometimes bring you unreasonable or unfavorable situations. You know, these are spontaneous sometimes. But if you are a delusion-free wise man, then you are neither affected by it. Right? You are neither affected by it, nor are you disturbed by it. You know, you're neither depressed nor elated. This is what we call, samadrishti. I'm coming to that in a while. Samadrishti. Detached from the world and established in only the thought of Brahman, one experiences the state of Ananda. Ananda is bliss, right? Is there a difference between happiness and bliss? Definitely, right? Happiness is only temporary, but once you touch bliss, it is permanent at a higher level, So, Ananda, Mahananda, Paramananda, Paramasukhanananda. That means the 4 levels of Ananda. Can you imagine? Right. So now Krishna has told him, you have to become wise. Arjuna is now asking, okay, how does one become wise? You see, some of these questions are very, very basic. And you'll be thinking, come on, Arjuna is such a learned fellow. How can he ask these questions? This is the real problem that we have today, Some questions that when we ask people or people ask of us is very, very basic, very, very mundane, very, very elementary, very, very basic. But because when people are confused, they are not thinking straight. So they ask all kinds of questions, even though you've just spoken to them, right? So all this is already been told, as a result of which the confused has become even more confused. But you see, the Lord continues, He says 2 things, Arjuna, will make you wise. When you delete the 2 Ks on your keyboard, your keyboard of life, 2 Ks are there, delete them, What are the 2 Ks? Kama and Krodha. Kama is lust or desire. Krodha is anger or temperament. Only when you destroy these 2 Ks, you become self-controlled. When you become self-controlled, the path, as a Jivan Mukta, the path to go to Videha Mukti is shorter. So, do that in your life. Now you have a desire not to fight, you have to cull it. Right? You have to use intelligence, you have to use wisdom. You have to use your buddhi to subdue what your mind wants to do. So, he says, Shravanam, Mananam, and Nidhyadasanam. Nidhyadasanam, right? Listening, absorbing, and putting it into practice. Nidhyadasanam. Hence, one has to assimilate whatever one has listened and absorbed. Assimilation must come out through practical means. There must be symptoms of you having reflected on what you have heard, and that reflection is coming out in real life. That is how yogis become yogis, They remove all thoughts of sense objects first. Then having withdrawn from those sense organs, then they regulate their breathing. Then they free themselves from all earthly thoughts that relates or links to desires or, all those wants, fear, anger. And then all the desires are replaced by one thing, desire for moksha. And that's it. Then they become. So, Krishna, I want to know how. See, despite all this, Arjuna is still asking how. So, Bhagavan tells him, Krishna tells him in 5.7, verse 7 of chapter 5. Yoga yukta vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriyaha sarva bhuthatma kurvan napinalityate. He He's telling the karma yogis who are purified of intellect, who control the mind and senses, see the soul of all souls in every living being. Though performing all kinds of actions, they are never entangled from that one thought, one vision. So he says, okay, let me give you 5 points for you to take on board and think about and act on now, so that you have moved from one stage of delusion to a slightly better stage of clarity. These are the 5. So he says, first thing you got to do is doing all your actions, the right actions, right? I'm not talking about all the negative things you want to do. You can't do a negative thing and, dedicate it to God. It won't work, because dharma is against that. So he says, do the right action all times, doing right things, right? Dharmic duty, and offering it to God and saying whatever comes is your gift and I will accept it. Not saying if I do A, I must get B. If I don't get B, at least I might get C. I must get C. I'm dedicated to you. Sarvam Krishna Arpanam. Whatever comes is your gift. I will accept with open arms. Right? Second thing he says is becoming free from likes and dislikes. I like this, I don't like that. I like that person, I don't like that person. Because when you get out of this habit of liking and disliking, all the other things like greed, anger, jealousy will slowly fade away, Just try it. Just try it. So he's telling Arjuna, why you like somebody, you don't like somebody? Just treat everybody as equal. What they do will affect them, because the karma will affect them. Again, how you look at them, how you see them, how you perceive them, that karma will affect you. So I'm telling you, do not accumulate karma. Just treat everybody as one. Because if you say, I'm in your heart, then the other fellow also will say, I'm in his heart. So if you don't see me in his heart, then where is your dharma as my devotee? Yoga yukto vishuddhatma. Atma is the same in everybody, isn't it? Thirdly, he says mind control. Controlling your mind by not perpetuating unwanted thoughts. So the moment one comes, you replace that with a higher thought, higher ideal, right? Then, of course, once you do that, then the fourth thing that will happen is it will subdue your senses by removing all value attached to enjoyment, sense-based enjoyment. And finally, of course, with that understanding, if you continue, you will see yourself in all beings and all beings in yourself. That's it. You are a yogi then. So that is what the whole chapter 5 was explaining, the distinction. See, he spoke about Jnana Yoga, he spoke about Karma Yoga, then he spoke about Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Now in 5, he's telling that what's the difference between the 3 and how to go forward. So what is the acronym? What is the acronym for chapter 5? STEP. S-T-E-P. STEP. Step by step we are going, isn't it? So I've chosen STEP. What is step S? What Krishna told Arjuna: stay in the world. Don't look for mountains and caves. Beg your pardon, right? You can look for cafes, no problem. Don't look for caves. Don't detach yourself and want to go in the forest. Stay in the world. Right? The first 12 stanzas of chapter 5 talks about how to stay in the world and yet not be attached to everything that we are doing in that world. Therein lies the cruciality of where you are going to be later. Then as that T is the doers. Who are the real doers of all actions? Right? There are 3 doers. I'll talk to you about it. E, S-T-E. E is equal vision. It's called Samadrishti, Jnana Drishti. Right? And of course, P, S-T-E-P. P is for peace. So S is stay in the world. T is for the 3 doers. E is for equal vision. And P is for peace. So let's take each one now, right? S is for stay in the world. Why? Because you're always confused. I'm talking about Arjuna, right? So Krishna's message to Arjuna is, you want to know whether to work or you either want to renounce, right? I am saying stay in the world. It's easier to be a karma yogi than to become a renunciant, because it allows you to work with devotion, right? And to act in an eternal position Because by doing that and dedicating all actions to me, all fruits to me, you are purifying your heart, and your journey becomes a bit more joyful. It allows you to engage in your senses and still arrive at renunciation. Whereas if you go through the path of renunciant, that you'll have to struggle, because that you're negating all your senses. It's like, what can I say, a stopgap position, and it does not purify your soul, because then if you're still thinking about, sense objects, then it's incomplete renunciation. You go back to square one. So it is easier for you to stay in the world, at the same time be detached from the fruits of your actions. Right? That is one. That is S. Then T is the three doers. Now, when you do things, ask yourself this way: who is the real doer? Because if you say, I am the doer, then, really and truly, you should be able to accomplish anything, isn't it? Because you are the doer. So you can't say, I'm not able to do this. When the moment you say, I'm unable to do this, or I can't do this, or I'm just not capacitated to do this, that means you must understand and accept and realize that you are not the doer. Yeah, because if you're the doer, there is nothing that you cannot, do. Everything you can do, because you are the doer. No, there are three levels of doers, right? The three doers, hence the T. Three doers who? First is the soul, right? Then the super soul. Then Prakriti, or material nature. So soul is the first level of doers. What is that? Soul is the desires. Desires at the conscious level made by jivas. That means human beings, right? So man, through his own free will, he is creating desires. That's the first level. But I just said to you, you are not the doer. So first, the will to have desires is created by man at a conscious level, the jiva, right? Jivatma, if you like. Then comes the super soul, subconscious, called Ishvara. Jiva, first level. Second level, Ishvara. Desires at the soul level. Super soul is talking about sanctions, or subconscious mind. Different level, right? Now, you've asked, right? I mean, we always say that word, isn't it? Man proposes and God disposes, right? So that is what is happening here. The super soul will decide whether you are entitled to have your desire fulfilled based on your karmic status, based on your karmic deeds. You say, you've done all this, okay, very good, but you've also done all of this, so I'm sorry, your application for this desire is disapproved, rejected, avoided, right? But if you are entitled to, then it goes to the next level. Material nature carries it out. Superconscious. That is the Prakriti, or earth. I told you, universal energy. This energy will go and bring what you desire to you, so long as the super soul, the subconscious, has okayed it. It's like, if I can explain this to you in a modern transaction. Let's say you go to a bank, right, to take a loan because you want to buy a car. So you've already got the car, right? The car company is willing to sell you the car, right? But you said, look, I'm going to apply for a loan. The car is yours the moment the loan comes through. So you go and apply for the loan. Now, of course, the banks will give you a loan based on your eligibility, isn't it? They have certain criteria. So if you fulfill all the criteria and you pass all their requirements, the bank will release the money to the car company, and the car company will release the car to you. So this is three levels. The soul, you want the car, you go and make a bank application, right? That is the super soul, subconscious. The super soul either will say, yes, you pass, you are approved, or no, you failed, you are disapproved. And that will depend whether you get the car or not. So that's the simple explanation of how, the three levels of conscious, subconscious, and superconscious, Jiva, Ishvara, and Prakriti, right? Desire, sanction, and carrying out of desires, all that work, right? So that is S and T. Then it's equal vision, Samadrishti, right? Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Shuni Chaiva Shwapake Chabandita Samadarshinaha. The truly learned. who only see with the eyes of divine knowledge, see with equal vision, whether it's a Brahman they are seeing, or whether it's a cow they are seeing, whether it's an elephant they are seeing, whether it's a dog they are seeing, or whether it's a dog eater. Samadrishti. That is very important. Seeing everybody with the perspective of knowledge. It's called Jnana Chakshu, right? Chakshu is your eyes, right? So everything you see with knowledge. Knowledge, what type of knowledge? Prajna, jnana, higher level of intelligence. Krishna says, Vidya Sampanne. That means, he's saying, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini. Right? He's saying, Vinaya means humbleness. You see with humility, you talk with a sense of humility, So reading something from the book is completely different to actually practicing it, right? Scholarship must come with practice. So he says, divine knowledge can bestow a vision like this. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, right? Then last one is peace, S-T-E-P, right? P is for peace. Arjuna asks, how does one get peace then? Because you want me to stay here and not be attached. You want me to have knowledge, but not renounce and go as a sannyasi. If I'm doing all of this, surely my mind is going to be in some trouble. So Krishna says, Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaraham Suridham Sarvabhutanam Nyatmamam Shantim Richati. He's telling, having realized me as the enjoyer of all the sacrifices, as the receiver of all austerities, the supreme lord of all the worlds, and the selfless friend of all living beings, you will attain peace. Basically, he's saying, see all in me and me in all at all times, and you will be at peace at any time. Very simple. See me in all, see all in me at all times, and you will be at peace anytime, every time, all the time, right? So he's saying, Yukta karma phalam tyakta shantim apnodi nashtikam ayukta karma karnena phalashaktho nibadyate. Yukta karma phalam tyakta shantim apnodi nashtikam ayukta karma karnena phaleshaktho nibadyate. So offer everything. Yukta karma phalam tyakta shantim. Only when you surrender everything to me, that you'll get that peace. So give. Whatever you do, give it away to me. Let me face the consequence. But the moment you think you are the doer and you expect the results, then I will say, okay, so be it. Tatasthu, then you are bound. You have to become, totally unattached and unmotivated by material rewards. And now I said to you, reward, award, or recognition, completely, move away from that. So with that, he's going now into Dhyana Yoga. He says, let me tell you now, how do you do it? So he goes into chapter 6. Chapter 6 is called Dhyana Yoga. Because it's Dhyana and a lot has to be said, it has about 47 verses. Here, Krishna describes in detail how the practice of yoga should be done and how a person can control his mind through yoga. Dhyana Yoga. In some books, it is referred to as Raja Yoga. It means the same thing. Raja Yoga and Dhyana Yoga means the same. Right? He's telling there are 4 or 5 prerequisites, requirements for you to move into Dhyana Yoga. Right? I mean, for most of us who say, oh, we are doing Dhyana every week, during bhajans, after bhajans, before bhajans, we meet every Monday evening at one brother's house or sister's house. We sit for half an hour. Okay, now this is what Krishna is telling Arjuna. How should Dhyana Yoga be done, right? Or be practiced? He says you need 5 things. Bahiranga sadhana, antaranga sadhana, Dhyana swarupam, how should it be? And of course, when you do it right, Dhyana phalan, Dhyana phalan, what you get as a result. And he's talking about Dhyana pratibandha. Dhyana pratibandha means what are the problems that will come when you start to meditate. And he gives the parihara. So first he talks about the pratibandha, the problems, then he gives the parihara, the solutions. Then he talks about yoga vrishta. one who's engaging in yoga but unable to complete it, then what happens to him? Then he talks about yogi stuti, the last two verses of the chapter. He gives praise to those who want to become in that path of dhyana, want to pursue that path of yoga, want to become a yogi, right? So because it's all talking about meditation and how to meditate and how to become, this is called dhyana yoga, this chapter, or it's called Atma Samyama Yoga, right? Samyama Yoga, chapter 6. Okay, so first he's talking about meditation. He says, you want peace, okay, you have to meditate. Then Arjuna asking, meditate on what? The trees, the sky, what? Meditate on what? He said, meditate upon the Lord as yourself. Meditate upon the Lord as the very self. Who is your very self, Arjuna? Your Atma. So you meditate on that Atma. So you can detach yourself from this bodily identification and attach yourself to that Atma. So you realize that you are the Atma. The Atma knows, my friend has come, so let me join forces with him. And for the moment that we are together, we will be in absolute peace and tranquility. Once you experience that, you'll never want to come out of that stage. Right? You'll keep wanting to go. But because people say they have no time, completely busy with life, no time to meditate. If you have no time to meditate, you have no time to assimilate self-knowledge. The Guru is telling you. Can you imagine after all that, Arjuna still says to Krishna, no, I want to go home. I don't want to fight. What's the point? Right? So there must be some signs of you listening. Shravanam, Mananam, Nityadasanam. Right? This is the conditioning that I am the body will go once you get into self-knowledge. Assimilation of self-knowledge alone can grant one ananda or bliss. So Krishna talks about the 5 important criteria in meditation. Firstly, I said to you, by Bahiranga sadhana. Bahiranga sadhana is what? A discipline that you have to follow in your daily life, which influences your capacity to meditate. This is the prerequisite. The disciplines that you have to follow in your day-to-day lives in order for you to have the capacity to meditate. Bahiranga sadhana. Then once you have gained that capacity, he's talking about antaranga sadhana. That means before you actually meditate, what must you do? It's like before the surgeons operate. There's certain rituals that they do before they operate, isn't it? Preparing the theater, preparing the patient, all of that. So before you actually do the meditation, what are the prerequisites? Antaranga sadhana. I mean, the science is perfect, He's telling exactly what you must do on a general basis, then on a specific basis before you start your meditation. Then he's telling about dhyana swarupam. What is the actual way, the nature, the character of meditation? Then he's telling, if you do it this way, what is the result of that? Dhyana phalan. What are the fruits? And then he's talking about the obstacle. Dhyana pratibandha. Dhyana pratibandha. And then he's telling the pariharam. What are the remedies? So you see, he has actually broken it down to very easy, understandable language for Arjuna. Right? So first he talks about Bahiranga sadhana. He said, look, at the very outset, right, you are disturbed. And you can only become undisturbed by going into your mind. So the extrovert, active mind has to be made contemplative. Then only you can go into leading a quieter life. You cannot be so engaged in the outer world and expect to have a quieter life inside. Be equally internal. So he says the first thing to do is you have to detach yourself from all the external activities, or do things in a way that you are not so disturbed when you sit down to do meditation. Detachment, so that you have a contemplative mind. How or what are the things you must do in order for you to have that contemplative mind? Okay. Then Arjuna asks, sorry, I don't understand. What do you mean? Krishna says, 2 things you must have, Arjuna. Self-confidence, self-control. one cannot exist without the other. If you want to meditate, you must have the confidence that you're able to meditate. And in order to do that, you must have control. Control of what? Control of your thoughts. Everything at the end of the day goes to two things, T and D, thoughts and desires. Okay. Now, one who lacks confidence or control finds himself in a bit of a problem because he has created an obstacle for himself in any pursuit that he or she chooses. On the other hand, one who has confidence and one who has control will enjoy supporting every other aspect of life without any impediment, right? So Krishna mentions to Arjuna, he says, first, you moderate yourself by reducing everything that you're doing, right? Everything in moderation. Arjuna says, like what? Krishna says, like your sleep, like what you eat, like what you work, like what when you rest. All this must be meditation, in moderation, right? Because anything in excess is poison. Everything in moderation leads to a contemplative mind. Now, a question for you at this stage, right? How many of us exercise and practice moderation in everything we do? How many of us? How many of us? Everything is either excessive, this end or that end, isn't it? So from Bahiranga Sadhana, this is Bahiranga Sadhana. Now he goes to Antaranga Sadhana. You know, when you want to go for a picnic, for example, right? You go and look for a very nice spot, isn't it? You don't just go and the first bench you get, you sit or something like that. No, you will see where there is no crowd, where there is like a small lake, a nice big tree, grass. So you look for certain things in order to place yourself there, because there is where you have thought you would be best placed to enjoy what you're going to do. Antaranga sadhana means exactly that, finding the right place to sit and go within. Where will you do it? In your kitchen? In your hall with the TV blasting away? Or in your room where, there's lots of noise? So you have to go and find a place. This is Antaranga sadhana, going before you go within. You have to ensure that the surrounding, the ambience is correct and you're properly placed. Antaranga sadhana. Then once you have found that place, right, you have to sit, you have to find yourself a seat. Asana, right? It's not too high, not too low, not too soft, not too hard, then your body has to be erect. This is Krishna telling Arjuna, you see how sharp and how, instruction is given. You have to first find yourself a place. Then you have to make sure that you're sitting comfortably. That means not too high, not too low, not too soft, not too hard. Then you sit in an erect position where your body is completely straight until, the tip of your head. So he's talking about the chakras being in alignment. Krishna is talking about the chakras of the body being in alignment, and that's how you should sit. So you can't be slouched forward or sitting like that, leaning backwards. You should be straight so that your chakras are in alignment. That is how the energy comes. Once you are sitting straight, you should actually get out of that place. That means you should withdraw the mind and the sense organs from all the activities. Only thing, you take everything from outside and you're going inside now. When you go inside, you become calm, you become withdrawn, you become undisturbed, you become tension-free, you become one-pointed, not outside, one-pointed inside. Arjuna's looking, okay. Then Krishna goes to tell him the third thing, Dhyana Swarupam and the Dhyana Palan, right? How to actually know that you are correctly meditating and what is the fruits. He said, meditation, when you can, meditation is nothing but abidance from the withdrawn mind in the Atma. He says, having given up the desires, having restrained your senses through the control of the mind, then one should gradually bring back the mind with the help of the discriminative intellect. Step by step. So he's telling how you must have an understanding of the Vedanta. Everything Vedanta means the Atma Vedanta, Atma Vidya, right? Atma Vidya. So those of you who listened to my talk on Navaratri yesterday, I spoke to you about Saraswati and what Atma Vidya is, what you should be asking her. Atma Vidya, not material knowledge, but knowledge of the self. Self is Atma, and that's what Krishna is telling here, right? So he's saying, Atma is not an object which you can buy and experience. Like a shirt you buy, you have a nice experience, a nice feel, isn't it? No, Atma is like that. Atma cannot be bought or thought or experienced because you are the Atma. So how can you experience yourself? You can only merge with the Atma. So he's saying, only way is for you to merge with the Atma. It is the very I. Thus, you knock off all expectations and struggles around that, knock it off, chip it off, then you see the Atma, then you can be one with the Atma. I am the Atma. Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, Prajnanam Brahma. Right? This is what it is at the end of the day. So constantly moving towards the Atma is what you should be focusing on your meditation. I am that thou art, that thou art. So he's saying Ananda, once you touch that Atma, you're in a state of Ananda. And Ananda, once you've experienced it, you will never want to come out of it because it's infinite, right? It's always been there, but you choose to experience the other side of the Ananda coin. One is Ananda, the other is sorrow, isn't it? But you always choose to experience sorrow, so you never hit Ananda. Once you bypass the sorrow, or you convert the sorrow to Ananda, then Ananda becomes evident and Ananda becomes permanent. Because this is what Buddha did, right? Buddha did that. He converted sorrow to bliss. So he saw everything with samadrishti. Samyak vak, samyak chintanam, samyak shravanam, samyak mananam, right? Buddha said that. So it's not a dissociation from sorrow, but an association with Atma that will take the sorrow away. Okay, very cleverly, Krishna is telling, don't dissociate yourself, but associate yourself with the Atma. Because when you associate yourself with the Atma, you are dissociating yourself from all sorrows. This is called Jivan Mukti. Jivan Mukti. So he says, then what? But Arjuna says, hey, if you do that, if you want to sit and meditate and withdraw your senses and mind, but you'll always get disturbance, isn't it? Either somebody is coming or, you realize you have to do something. Arjuna puts a question about obstacles during meditation. It's something that we always ask. Last week I had 2 or 3, people contacting me and say, I'm trying to do meditation, but, I'm always getting disturbed by thoughts or by someone calling me or someone, I just realized I have an email to answer. What do I do? I said, this is your problem today. Arjuna had it then, right? 2 things I said to him. Bahiranga sadhana, antaranga sadhana. Okay? See, my job is very easy because I just have to repeat what Krishna has already said. I really don't have to think about anything in depth. So I said to him, 2 things, brother, right? Detachment and practice. Detachment, since when you go to meditate, you're giving yourself that half an hour, 40 minutes or whatever the case may be, right? Detach yourself from everything and everyone. Tell everybody, for the next 40 minutes, I am not, I'm incommunicado. Tell your family, your wife, your children, any calls, tell them I'm busy. Put your phone away. Totally, I told you, look for that picnic spot where you'll be most comfortable. Find that space. Detach yourself there and then practice. Practice going within. Of course, people might say, oh, it's easier said than done. Yes, but everything has a beginning, isn't it? The first time is difficult. The second time is not that difficult. Third time is lesser difficult. Fourth time difficult. Fifth time, you'll know what to do. Right? So detachment and practice is what? Arjuna asks, Pradibandha, there's always disturbance. And Krishna is giving the parihara, the solution. He's saying, look, this is it. Detachment and practice. And that is what we have to do as well. We have to detach ourselves from the common surroundings, from all our obligations and responsibilities, and that half an hour give for us to connect with our Atma. Mental discipline, spiritual discipline, mental discipline you need. Then Arjuna says, okay, but he still feels defeated. He still feels divided and he thinks liberation is not possible in one life. So I can't sit and meditate and reach God in one go. What if I am already engaged in the practice, but I am not yet reached the level and then my life ends? Yoga Brishta. Arjuna is asking this question. So he says, what happens to the seeker who has fallen from the state of meditation before he reaches that state of Atma Vidya or Atmanyani? Krishna says, the moment you're already on that path, you cannot fall to a lower level of existence. This is the next birth you get. Arjuna, the next birth you get, you will already be at that level where you are engaged in a family, or you are born into a family of yogis or rishis or priests or pandits or whatever the case may be. So you're already there because you have put the seeds in the previous life. So it's a continuous. Remember karma. So if you want to enjoy something better in your next life, do things in this life. What you're enjoying now is as a direct result of what you have done in previous lives. And that is the basis of karma. So Yoga Brishta, Krishna explains to Arjuna, is one who has fallen from the path of spirituality. But because he has already exercised some practice in spirituality, the next life he's born into a cultured or a prosperous family or even a rishi family, then it's no problem because you're already halfway there. Then you just have to build yourself. Right? Because you will get associated with your previous wisdom. Because you're already born in that. Right? And that he says, once you're already born into that new family, then you can easily detach yourself from your habits or sanskaras. And you will find that yourself being drawn by a spiritual urge. Spiritual urge will come. And not like your previous life where you had to do so many things to get to where you are. Because you've done that, this life is much more easier, He concludes this chapter by looking at what is a meditator, what is meditation, and the results of a meditator meditating on the Paramatma. He says the Jivatma can merge with the Paramatma simply by going within. So don't go and look for God outside if you cannot find Him inside. Simple message. How fantastic is that? Don't go outside looking for God when He should be residing within you. That is why Antaranga Sadhana, go within to find Him. Because at the end of the day, He is your Atma. That's why in the beginning, in the chapter 1, I said to you, Krishna told Arjuna what? He said, look, I know all the births that I have taken from age to age. But you don't know that because you are attached to the body, you're not attached to your soul. Hence, chapter 6, he's telling how to attach to the soul so you too can become like me. So what is the acronym for chapter 6? I'll make it very easy for you, okay? The acronym is easy. EASY. Okay? EASY. What is E? Since we're talking about the mind, so is the mind an enemy or a friend? Arjuna is asking. E, enemy or friend? Then A, Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 stages of yoga. Then S, if I'm successful in Ashtanga Yoga, fine, I reach. But if I'm a failure, then what happens? Then Y is for yogi. EASY. E for enemy or friend, A for Ashtanga Yoga, S for success or failure, and Y is for yogi. Okay, so enemy or friend? E. Is your mind an enemy or is it a friend? Krishna says, a controlled mind becomes your friend. An uncontrolled mind becomes your enemy. Then you are torn between the devil and the angel in your mind's voice. Sometimes you refer to that as your conscience. Good conscience, bad conscience, Devil talks to you or angel talks to you. Controlled mind, angel is talking. Uncontrolled mind, devil is talking. The thoughts equals belief system. Belief system equals lifestyle. Lifestyle equals thoughts. It is a vicious circle. It's a vicious cycle. That's why he says, in chapter 6, verse 5, he says, Udarat atmata atmanam natmanam avasadaye atmaiva hitmano bandhur atmaiva ripuratmanaha. Udarat atmanatmanam natmanam avasadaye. Atmaiva hyatmano bandhur atmaiva ripuratmanaha. Elevate yourself to the power of your mind. And do not degrade yourself, for the mind can become your friend, and the same mind can also become the enemy of yourself. So you have the choice. That is E, enemy or friend. Then A, Ashtanga Yoga, right? Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. He talks about the different ways to go up. Krishna says, but then he tells Arjuna, of course, you have to do Ashtanga Yoga, but Ashtanga Yoga is only possible for one who completely detaches himself. So Arjuna is saying, you told me earlier that I shouldn't go to the forest and live or go to the cave and live. Now you're telling me Ashtanga Yoga is only possible for someone renunciant. He says, yes, but you can overcome that by practicing the 5 steps I've told you. Bahiranga sadhana, ensuring the external practices are there to allow you to meditate. Then antaranga sadhana, preparation before meditation. Then dhyana swarupam. Then in case you get problems, pratibandha, and the solution, detachment. Practice. Right? Arjuna says, oh, what you're saying sounds like a mission impossible. Madhusudana, it's mission impossible actually. And Arjuna says, Chanchalam hi manaha Krishna pramati balavadratham tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram. He's telling very difficult. The mind is restless. Krishna, it's turbulent, it's strong, it's obstinate. Krishna, it does not seem right to me that I be able to do it. Because the mind is so restless. And Krishna is telling, Asanyasham mahabaho manodurnigraham chalam abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. He's saying, no, you can do it so long as you have 2 things. Abhyasena. See? Krishna is like, abhyasena. Abhyasena tu kaunteya. He's saying, practice that. Those are the do's. Abhyasena means what you must continue to do. And then vairagyena. So he's telling 2 things, right? The don'ts. So the do's, abhyasena, is the practice. The don'ts, vairagya, is the detachment. That's your answer. Continue to do things whilst detaching yourself from all other things. Practice makes perfect. Then your success or failure. And Krishna says, whether you end your journey in this life as a meditator and reach the pinnacle, that means you touch your Atma, that's fine. Success is guaranteed. But in the event you haven't, but you're trying, you're in the process of connecting with your Atma and your life ends prematurely or sometimes naturally, then don't worry, because in your next life, success is guaranteed. The only question is how many lifetime one needs. Krishna is very clever, right? He says, if you're there, it's fine. Next life will be much easier. But even if next life you can't hit, then next life, you have to decide how many lifetimes you need. So success or failure, once you're in that path of meditation, again, if you really want to know how this is done, you go and read the Narayana Upanishad, where it actually talks about meditation. Narayana Upanishad. So path of a yogi has eternal benefits. Once you go into meditation, dhyana, you become a yogi, and each time you get a higher birth. If you haven't completed it, if you haven't reached the destination, each time you get a higher birth, right? And at some point, you will merge, right? And finally, it talks about the yogi, the greatness of yogis. Become fully conscious. The yogis are people who relate to God at all times, in all things, in everything, right? So Arjuna asks, who is the true yogi? Because you have now spoken to me about karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, and bhakti yoga. Because you told me to be devoted to my cause. So which is the best path, Krishna? Krishna says, Yoginam api sarvesham matgate nantaratmanaha shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo mataha. He's telling you, one who is in a contemplative mind, always connecting to me with full devotion, is the easiest path to reach me in this Kali Yuga. That is the path of bhakti. Bhakti yoga is the easiest. That's what Swami has always said, isn't it? In this Kali Yuga, the easiest way is bhakti yoga. And bhakti yoga has given you 9 different ways, isn't it? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Dashyam, all the Sakhyam, Atmanivedanam. 9 paths for each path. Which path is good for you, you choose that. Right? So that is chapters 5 and 6. So chapter 5, I gave you an acronym called STEP, STEP, and chapter 6 is easy. So if you take easy steps, you will reach him easily. If you take difficult steps, you will still reach him, but with a lot of difficulty. Both ways, the answer is one. You will reach me either quickly or slowly. Choice is yours. Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Krishna Pranamastu.